Hi, this is Frederick Buskey from Strategic Leadership Consulting. Thanks for tuning in to this series on leading from home. We're covering 5 topics in this series: routines, spaces, as in home office space, healthy practices, communications, and finally, renewal. There are 3 themes that go throughout this series. First is being intentional. So whatever you do, whatever choices you make about leading from home, be intentional about your choices. The second thing is limiting distractions and interruptions. And the third big theme is being fully and healthily engaged in whatever you're doing. Each video supplements material that can be found on my blog at frederickbuskey.com/blog. And these are being released in the last week of March, first week of April 2020. So if you're going there later, you can use the archive. So I hope you subscribe to this video. This is a critical time, and as we adjust to a new normal, I'm glad that you're taking me along on your journey with you, and I hope that what you find here is valuable and helps the great work that you do. Okay, let's get started. All right, I'm really excited about today's topic, communications. But I'm a bit concerned based on my observations of people in the field and the way that they use communications and keep their alerts on and all that kind of stuff. I'm worried I might be committing heresy today. So if you disagree with me, you disagree with things in the video, please go ahead and leave comments below. Do that in a respectful manner. Certainly we all have a lot of learning still to do, and I'd love to learn from you. All right, so remember, there's 3 overarching themes in this series, right? Be intentional about your decisions, limit distractions and transitions, and engage fully. The problem with communications is that all of those alerts and interruptions undermines all 3 of those things, right? It makes it difficult to be intentional because we start becoming reactive because everything's urgent. It interrupts us consistently, and which then in turn limits our ability to fully engage in tasks. So this probably is the most important topic because failure to manage your communications and your communication alerts is going to undermine everything else that we've been trying to achieve in this series. So when we talk about managing your communications, from the direction that I approach it, really, the goal is to be able to engage in periods of uninterrupted work time. Those could be as short as 30 minutes. It could be as long as 3 hours. But those blocks of time that are completely uninterrupted, that's where we achieve peak performance. That's where we achieve flow state. That's where we're at our best. Not only does it help us do good work, but it's also mentally healthy and a lot of times reinvigorating for us when we can get into that flow work. So somewhere between 30 minutes and 3 hours, depending on the day and what your focus is. So when we talk about limiting communications, that's what we're trying to achieve. Not 12 hours with no phone calls, but 30 minutes to 3 hours. So what does that high flow state or that focus work look like? It really can take 2 forms. So one is intense brain work and the other is intense personnel work. That brain work could be examining data related to a complex problem, reading or writing a proposal or plan, evaluating the outcome of an initiative, or maybe working to understand how some kind of change that came either from the external environment or from higher up in your organization, how's that change going to impact your organization and your work, right? So those are all things that demand really high levels of cognitive functioning and are best done with uninterrupted chunks of time. Intense personnel work. So that's coaching and mentoring people, collaborating with a team or an individual, and then also being as a leader present and just affirming the people that you work with. Think about any of those situations where you're working one-on-one or in a small group with people doing something that's really important, and you get a phone call and you take that phone call, or the phone's whistling, or whatever all those different sounds are coming at you. That's really not great for the work that you're doing. So how will limiting your communications clutter improve your organization? Well, let's read off some bullet points. Right, number one, it increases efficiency and quality of problem solving and strategic actions because you're being able to be focused and being at your peak cognitive efficiency and effectiveness. It prioritizes the important over the urgent, which is so critical for moving to the place where you're a strategic leader, that you're acting on what's important, not just what's butting into you and what's trying to compete for your attention. It increases your impact with people. It models healthy priorities, right? So what if everybody in your organization focused most on the most important work instead of the urgent work? It increases your time dedicated to core practices and priorities. It also builds leadership capacity throughout the organization because if you're not going to be on hand to take every single phone call and incoming message, right, somebody's got to field those things. So you can build capacity of other people to do more of that work in your organization. And then finally, it decreases your stress levels. So there's lots of reasons why you should actively work to manage your communications clutter. Now, in the content, the written content that preceded this video, we talk about some strategies that you can do to manage those communications. That's not really what this video is about. So if you haven't looked at the content, go back and do that, and you'll see what some of the strategies are that I suggest. This is really more of a sales job of me just trying to convince you to really be intentional about how you manage your communications and how you declutter your communications. So a couple of caveats. Like, my life isn't yours, right? I don't work in the same kinds of teams, the same kind of environment. So I understand that there may be pressing demands and needs for your time that I don't have. So I understand that. And so that frees you to take what you will from this or not. But again, what I urge you to do is to be intentional about what you choose to accept or reject. There are true emergencies, right? We get that. And there are times when there's a project or something going on where you have to be available and have immediate response. So that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about sloppy habits that create the conditions where you've got communications clutter on a consistent basis. We're not talking about exceptions. But the other thing that could be happening is that everything is an exception, right? There's always an emergency. You always have to be available. And if that's true, then it seems to me that there's something wrong. There's something wrong in the organization. There's something wrong with the way your leadership has been positioned and what the demands are on you. So I hope I've helped you to really think critically about your communications and how you manage your communications. I want to leave you with one kind of sobering thought. If you're not convinced at this point that you need to be really disciplined about decluttering your communications because you're so important that everything needs to flow through you and you need to be available all the time, here's my hard question for you. What happens if you go down? Because at some point, we're all going to go down, right? And so if you aren't available, what happens to your organization? Where do all those people go that have become accustomed to you being available all the time? So I don't want to end on that hard, sobering question, but it's a legitimate question. So I hope you found this conversation at least to be stimulating. I hope there's some things that you'll be able to apply from the written content or maybe from the video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. Please leave comments. I'd love to do a follow-up episode on this. I know that I haven't incorporated all the different perspectives regarding communications, so please leave a message, share your experiences, let me know what resonated with you or what didn't. Our next video will be on renewal, and that will come out on Friday, April 3rd, 2020. I think I asked you already to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out and help more people find these videos and see what we're done. You can learn more about me and my work at my website at frederickbuskey.com. All of the written content for this series of videos is on my blog at frederickbuskey.com/blog. And you can feel free to email me at fbuskey@gmail.com. I think that's it. Do good. and be well.